Hey guys, welcome to this video. So let's talk about diplomacy and quantum mechanics. Of course, I know you're wondering what has quantum mechanics got anything to do with diplomacy. Now, by diplomacy, I don't really mean any political diplomacy or international relations. I mean, those are very important, but I am talking about diplomacy in general. Diplomacy is important for each and every one of us in each and every stage of life. Yeah, for us, maybe we're not dealing with international politics or countries. It may be diplomacy at your college, diplomacy at your family, diplomacy within among your friends. But yeah, what is diplomacy, and why do I say how is diplomacy related to quantum mechanics? Of course, there is no logical or any relation, but I think we can think about diplomacy in a slightly different way, which is somewhat similar to what we do in quantum mechanics. That's why that's why I will talk about diplomacy and quantum mechanics. First of all, diplomacy, contrary to common misconception, diplomacy does not mean you will try to, maintain a good friendship or good relationship with everyone else, because that is not diplomacy. That means you are assuming a fixed outcome. No, I have to maintain a good relationship with everyone else, and you are working towards that outcome. If you follow this strategy, or if you follow this approach, then your actions will be oriented towards, like your action will be easily predictable, because all the other players in the game will easily figure out that what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a middle ground, you're trying to be friendly with everyone else. And if your enemy can figure out your strategy, that's the worst possible. I mean, that's really not diplomacy. That will not leave you at a better off position, because in reality the situation is often so complex that it's not practically possible to be friends with everyone. You have to choose your friends and your enemies. But yeah, diplomacy also does not mean that he will openly declare that he or she is my friend and they are my enemies. No, that is also not diplomacy. Then what is diplomacy, and why does quantum mechanics come into the picture? Well, first of all, in diplomacy we cannot talk about a specific outcome. We cannot assume that, okay, he is my friend, or they are my enemies, or they are my friends. Any kind of deterministic outcome, any kind of fixed specific outcome or prediction or assumption is not allowed in diplomacy. And the same holds true for quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, you cannot say that the particle is at this particular position. There will always be some uncertainty, at least at the macroscopic level. Maybe the uncertainty is not so significant at macroscopic level, but it is there in quantum mechanics. Similarly, there is an element of I should say probability in diplomacy. You cannot assume a particular outcome and work towards that outcome, because diplomacy is quantum mechanics. Diplomacy is not classical mechanics. Okay, and maybe I'm a physics student, so I'm trying to you may say that you are trying to bring physics into everything, but it's a very good analogy actually. Let me give you one more example. Let me just continue the discussion actually. Now, in diplomacy, I told you diplomacy doesn't mean you're trying to be friendly with everyone else. Neither does it mean you will openly declare or you will openly show. I mean, you may not have to declare it in a speech or something, but you will openly show through your actions that they are my friends and they're my enemies. So you are neither allowed to do this, nor are you allowed to be friends with, or at least try to be friends with everyone else. Then you may ask, then what is diplomacy? What are we trying to do? The answer comes from, I mean, it's something which is very much like studied in game theory. It's called that in diplomacy, if you talk about a diplomat of a country, or if you talk about an individual person, or if you talk about a company which is dealing with its rivals, or if you talk about an organization, whatever it is, diplomacy means you will plan your moves, or you will kind of build a strategy in such a way that regardless of what the other players in the game do, you will be at a relatively better off position. You are not assuming what the other players will do, because you cannot predict that. Even if that player seems very friendly with you, it may be the case that he is more friendly with someone else and he may backstab you because of that someone else. I mean, you cannot really know everything that's going on in the mind of every player. So you cannot know every decision they're going to take. You cannot predict their actions. They also cannot predict your actions. So you also have something, I mean, it's the same with everyone. Now you have to build a strategy that is to your advantage. That's what a true diplomat does. Now, what I actually mean by this is that you will not assume any moves. That means what I said is that you will have to build a strategy so that you will be at a better off position no matter what happens. A more specific way to put it would be that, suppose let's talk about A and B. There are many players in the game. It's much more complex, but let's just to keep things simple, to convey the what I'm trying to say to you, let's just assume that you are the player and there are only two opponents, A and B, two other players, A and B. I'm not saying A and B are both together and they're both playing against you. All three, you, A and B, all three independent players. Now you don't know whether A is your friend or enemy, or B is your friend or enemy, or whatever. I mean, which one is friend, which one is enemy, or whether both are friends or whether both are enemies. You don't know that. Then diplomatically what you should do is that you should plan your moves, or I mean, you should at least build a strategy in such a way that if A turns out to be your enemy, then B will come and stand by your side, even if B is not your true friend. What I mean by with this is that you can plan your moves in such a way that if A turns out to be an enemy, that means if any of your moves hurt A, then A will reveal its true colors. If A is actually an enemy and if any of your moves hurt A, then A will reveal its true colors. And you have to, there are many possible moves that can hurt A, but you will only implement those moves in the game which will indirectly benefit B. That means I'm talking about a move that will simultaneously hurt A and benefit B. Now if A is your enemy and if you hurt A, then A will reveal its true color. But since this move benefits B, then B will come and stand by your side. So you are at a better off position. You are not alone. Similarly, you can also make some moves. You can also have some backup plan or some alternative moves. In which case, those moves will hurt B but benefit A. So if B is your enemy and A is your friend, then also you are at a better off position. A will come and stand by your side. If it's the other way around, then also you are at a better off position. If both are your enemies, well, you have to take that risk. It may be possible that if both are your enemies and you hurt A, then B will stand by A's side and you will be at a relatively worse off position. But yeah, I'm just giving you an example. I'm not a professional diplomat, of course. And this is just to give an example. The real situation is way more complex than this, than just 3 players. And yeah, this is an overly simplified picture. But this is what I'm saying. So in diplomacy, you can only talk about possibilities. There are many possibilities. Either A is your enemy, B is your friend, or B is your enemy, A is your friend, or both are your enemies, or both are your friends. So these are the 4 possibilities. Next, you have to talk about the probability of each possibility. So in a mathematical problem, yeah, we can say that okay, all the 4 are equally possible. I don't really know anything about A and B in a mathematical scenario, but in real life, there is some information in our hands with which we can make a guess that okay, it's more likely that A is a friend and B is an enemy, and it's less likely that B is a friend and A is an enemy. You can never say that A is a friend and B is an enemy. You can never make any such statements. Like I said, quantum mechanics, not classical mechanics. But at least you can talk about which is more likely, in which case the probability is high. Just like in quantum mechanics, it's a theory of possibilities and probabilities. Now, if you see that the probability that both are enemies is very low, then you can take the risk and make a move that will hurt A and benefit B, or the other way around. But if you see that the probability is very high that both are your enemies, then of course you will not be foolish enough to make such a move, right? So this is diplomacy, and I often like to think about diplomacy in terms of superposition. Like you are superposing all the possible outcomes, and you are like in terms of physics, superposition in quantum mechanics. There is a superposition principle where you kind of add up all the probability amplitudes. Probability amplitude is basically like a wave, though it's not exactly a wave as we understand in classical physics. It's not a physical wave or anything, but it's kind of like a wave. So if the superposition principle holds, the superposition principle holds in quantum mechanics. At least if you don't like disturb the system. I'm just putting it in very rough terms. I don't want to go into quantum mechanics in this video. That's not the point of this video. But the superposition principle holds in quantum mechanics. That means you can under certain circumstances, if there is no disturbance, you can sum up or superpose or add up the probability amplitudes of the events, and you get a superposed total probability amplitude, and then you take the square of the modulus to get the probability. Now all that is technical, mathematical. If you don't know quantum mechanics, fine, but all I'm saying is that in quantum mechanics, what we often do is we sum up the probability corresponding to all the possibilities, the probability amplitudes to be more precise, corresponding to all the possibilities, and that is how we get the final outcome. Similarly in diplomacy, your final move or your final outcome should be decided by this superposition. Like you should take the superposition, you should sum up all your possibilities. Like there are many possibilities, and it's not just a normal summation or normal average, it's a weighted average. That means you should sum up in such a way that the possibility with the higher probability will have a greater weightage towards your decision than the possibility with the lower probability. Of course, you need to do that at least, because it's not just a simple math problem. In real life, diplomacy is not it's more than a simple math problem. Otherwise, every one of us would be great diplomats, right? Diplomacy is not easy. But I think it's an interesting way to think about diplomacy in terms of quantum mechanics, and in the way I discussed in this video, especially for the layman. I mean, of course, those who are professional diplomats, there is nothing new in this video for them. They know way more than me. But if you're a layman, and I'm assuming that most of you are when it comes to diplomacy, because a professional diplomat has a lot on their plates. They will not come and watch my videos. I'm not that famous of a YouTuber or personality. So I think I would like to know your thoughts about this. That's all. And thank you for watching the video, because I think it's a very interesting way to think about diplomacy like this. And diplomacy is very important at every sphere of life, at every level. You need not be you need not be an official diplomat of a very big nation to learn these things. At our individual levels, we all need to behave diplomatically, because all of us, we need to meet with colleagues at work, at college, at university, or even at many places. So developing these skills and this mindset of diplomacy, I think, is very important for everyone in general. So yeah, yes guys, thank you for watching. Thank you so much.